Hey, thank you everyone for joining us. This session is titled Best Practices for Preparing and Supporting Youth for Leadership Evaluation Roles. Today's session is hosted by EvalYouth North America. We are a regional chapter of EvalYouth Global Network. We support the goals of promoting young and emerging evaluators to be technically sound, well-experienced and well-networked professionals, and are included in the evaluation field. Today's session is also part of Youth and Evaluation Week. Today is the third day, and today will be EvalYouth North America last session that we'll be hosting for the week. And today's session, we want to share different perspectives from various evaluators that will explore best practices and lessons that they've learned in developing their own leadership skills and providing and sustaining support for youth that are trying to attain and act in leadership roles as well. And so today I'll introduce the panelists, and then we'll hop into some questions that we have for the panelists. So first up, our first panelist is Lyska Wamaria, who's a seasoned monitoring and evaluation professional, currently working with the World Bank Group with over 10 years of experience in designing, implementing, and managing M&E frameworks for international development projects. Her expertise lies in ensuring the effectiveness, efficiency, and impact of programs through data collection, analysis, and reporting. She has a proven track record of working with various stakeholders, including Malawi and Rwanda government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and private sector partners to develop comprehensive M&E plans tailored to energy trust funds and transport project goals and donor requirements. She's skilled in using a wide range of quantitative and qualitative research methods, including surveys, interviews, focus groups, and statistical analysis softwares like Survey CTO, Stata, etc. Lyska also holds 2 master's degrees, one in statistics with computer application and another in rural management, both from Annamalai University, India. She is passionate about development and use of data and M&E as a key tool for informing evidence-based decision-making. Our next panelist is Dr. Izzy Thornton, who is a multi-method applied sociologist and data scientist with demonstrated expertise in studies of childhood, educational inequality, and health disparities. She serves as a principal at the Evaluation Association within the Center for Research Evaluation at the University of Mississippi. She began there in 2022 after completing her PhD in sociology from Mississippi State University. Prior to her doctoral studies, she also earned her BA in sociology, a BSW in social work, and an MS in sociology. And our next panelist is Olivia Melvin. She's an evaluation associate at Center for Research Evaluation, splitting her time across the early childhood, K through 12, and higher education portfolios. Olivia views education as a mechanism to meet communities where they are in their data literacy journey, building capacity and utilizing empowerment evaluation strategies along the way. She has a BA in International Studies in Mandarin and is pursuing an MA in Political Science at the University of Mississippi. She also participated in the 2021 through 2022 EvalYouth Global Mentorship Program, learning a wealth of theoretical and practical evaluation strategies from nearly 100 global mentors and fellow mentees. She strives to blend regional, national, and international monitoring and evaluation practices in ways that are most responsive to cultural and contextual community needs. She is the current chair of EvalYouth North America, entering the role in February of 2024, and is looking forward to shaping the work by centering community voices. We also did have 2 other panelists. Amy might be able to join us later in the session, so she can introduce herself if she is able to join, and then Jakayla wasn't able to make it today. So we'll hop right into the questions that we have for our panelists. And the first question is to tell us about your evaluation career journey.
I would like Izzy to go first.
Sure, I'm happy to. As a note, Wednesday is work from home for our office, and my cat has apparently decided she wants to be part of this conversation, so she may be in and out in joining us this afternoon. So at the risk of telling a story that Olivia has heard 1,000 times, my journey to evaluation really started in the 501c3 nonprofit space. So before I was working in academia, when I was 18 and 19, I was working for several social justice nonprofits based out of Jackson, Mississippi. And in my time with those nonprofits, my work was mostly in direct service and programming, but a barrier that I ran into very commonly was that when we were trying to demonstrate a case to community members or help policymakers see, an approach we were advocating for, we would often run into this problem where we would say, well, we want to be able to argue blank, but we would need a data person for that. Or we want to be able to really look at the effectiveness of this or the impact of this strategy, but we would need a data person for that. And eventually I heard we would need a data person for that so many times that I went out and I became a data person. So my movement through academia, my movement through sociology and social work and into my doctorate has always been shaped by the idea of collecting a big toolkit of data skills and applied sociology skills that I can bring back to put into service for social justice and other community work. I'm really fortunate to have found a position in Mississippi, which is where my work has always been substantively based, where I get to do that. And now I have a team of really phenomenal evaluators and managers that work with me to get to use all of the neat kinds of math that I had the state of Mississippi teach me, as well as a lot of qualitative skills. But that's how I ended up here.
Awesome. I can go next. I came into evaluation on accident, as many people do. I graduated from undergrad in 2020 in the pandemic as an international studies and Chinese major, was supposed to go do my capstone year abroad. Plans changed, landlocked, quarantined, stuck in Mississippi. And then as I'm trying to grapple with what to do with the rest of my life, I got a contact from somebody at the Center for Research Evaluation who was looking for a Mandarin translator. That was the one skill I was confident in at the time. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever it is, like I can do it. So little did I know at the time, I was translating protocols to be used for an international ed evaluation project. So I was going from English to Chinese and I was translating them, doing culturally responsive, like annotation and reviewing through those things. And then they ended up asking, okay, well, could you then facilitate, because we don't have anyone to do these things? Then can you transcribe the transcripts and translate everything back to English? And so throughout the process of being a translator, I had gone through the different steps of evaluation. And toward the end of that, in that consulting role, they were like, would you like to pick up some English projects too? So I came in through Chinese language evaluation first through a bilingual bicultural program, and then came into our other K-12 higher ed, other ed projects and pursued a full-time role in the field. But all that is to say, backward looking, the through line feels a lot more clear now, because I was a recipient of many programs in the state of Mississippi as a student where I would wonder where the feedback mechanism was and why people didn't care what the experience was for students in some of the things I participated in. So all that is to say, I had the heart for evaluation even as a program recipient, but I saw a gap in what could be filled. So that has led me to where I am today. Also, Izzy, let me know if I forgot anything else about myself. Liska, super excited to hear yours.
Yeah, so my career in evaluation started when I finished my studies. I graduated in statistics with computer application, and that was back in India in 2013. When I went back home in Rwanda in 2013, in the summer, I started looking for jobs, and I was like, so what's next? But I knew that inside I was passionate about data, the use of data, playing with data, whatever was coming with it. So I decided to just go first for an internship in the Rwanda Statistical Institute of Statistics in Kigali, where I got a professional 6 months internship, and I was like enjoying every single day there, but the job did not come, and then my program just ended, and I was like, okay, fine, let me just keep looking. So one day I remember I was reading the terms of reference and I was seeing the monitoring and evaluation positions. I was like, oh, hold on. What does it require? And I told myself, you know what? I don't want to be going only for the statistical roles, like statistics officer or something. I was like, okay, fine. Now I'm gonna shape myself to become a monitoring and evaluation specialist. So I just sat, prepared, read, and I prepared myself. And I was like, okay, now I think I'm ready and I know what is required to be called a monitoring and evaluation specialist. I started applying for different positions, and then luckily, like after 3 months after my internship program, I got hired in the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources for a feeder roads project. That was that was my first job, my first professional job that I got, and then that was also my first opening door to the evaluation career. Then I joined the ministry, and the fascinating thing about this, I grew up in a city, like I'm a city girl, so. And the project was like designed for rural people. It was a rural feeder roads project. So that was the first thing which excited me. So I got the opportunity to go and explore whatever I did not have a chance to explore when I was a kid. And learned about monitoring and evaluation really when I was working. So I was learning and doing at the same time, which is something that I liked. And also I've met different people, and then in the middle of our project, so we started. When I joined the project, was at the very beginning, everything was on scratch. So like no one knew better than me, which was the best thing, right? As a new person in the field. So I was like, okay, fine. So the level of knowledge was like the same. So I was trying to do more research and then making sure that I can sharpen myself to be the best M&E person. So later on, the project got more fundings from different donors, and then the donors were like, no, we are putting a lot of money here. It will be also important that we conduct impact evaluations. So we now started designing the impact evaluation of the project that I was monitoring at the beginning, and then we started doing impact evaluation of the project. Now, so it's like monitoring and evaluation, impact evaluation running together from the beginning, which was my baby project, but also my win project, because that is how that is what shaped me, my career, and this is the door which really brought me where I am today. So I would say that this is the main entry, and I love it. I love it because at least when you're doing monitoring and evaluation, you happen to work on things and you see things being achieved, you see results. And when you go to the field, you see how you have impacted people's lives socially, and you feel like, okay, wow, you go back with a happy heart. You feel like, okay, I've done something. There is something happening. So, but again, coming back and then doing economic research, then using the facts to ensure that whatever amounts, investment you're putting there is really giving back to the community. Using facts is also something good, like for the donors and political or decision makers. It's also something important. So I would stop by here, but this is how I can describe or share my evaluation career. Thank you.
That's awesome. We have a question in the chat already. Carlos, was that for everybody or someone specifically? I'm going to assume everybody. Let's see. Carlos asked, what was the key milestone you achieved and catapulted you into a deeper engagement in the evaluation field? Does anyone have a strong answer to that on the panel?
I think I might, if you don't mind me going first.
Yeah, please.
It's less of a key milestone and more of a key headache. And this is what it was. In 2009, I was working in the area of LGBTQ non-discrimination policies for kids in schools in Mississippi. And forgive me, Olivia, I feel like you've heard all of my stories a million times. But a problem that we ran into very frequently was we had a difficult time convincing policymakers, change makers, school leaders, administrators, sometimes even teachers, that in 2008, LGBTQ kids existed in Mississippi schools at all. And we, obviously we had a team of about 10 people who were themselves LGBTQ or otherwise identified kids in Mississippi schools. That was not sufficient for demonstrating the case. And what we kept running into were these leaders saying basically like they were not willing to believe this subpopulation even existed among young people unless we were able to demonstrate it with data. 10 years later, we would find out that once we were able to demonstrate it with data, the goalposts moved, and that's fine. But that was kind of the first major headache where I saw how badly a movement can be impacted by a lack of adequate needs assessment data, by an lack of adequate evaluation data. And so one of my first major pushes, and it took a very long time to accomplish, but we did eventually achieve it, was state level representative quantitative data collection about LGBTQ students in Mississippi schools. So for whatever milestones we have reached and whatever milestones we are still working toward reaching, being able to mathematically demonstrate the existence of a group that I was a member of and that I was working on behalf of and in conjunction with was something that was really important.
Thank you, Izzy. If I was tired of your stories, I'd stop asking you to talk on panels. Don't worry. I kind of have an answer to this, and it's all happenstantial. Like, I got so lucky to come into a center with really supportive directorship and peers, one of my favorite humans on the planet, and a graduate assistant with us for a couple years who came in at the same time as me, luckily, Monica Coleman, got me involved in really early days in our very first empowerment evaluation at the center. Super like low budget pilot experience. We were just trying to see what we could do, like what we could do with the dollars, what change we could see in communities. And she brought me to her hometown. And we truly went in blank slate, and we were like, okay, let's bring the community together. What do people want to accomplish? What is the need? What are the assets? Let's do this. And it ended up being one of the most amazing processes I've ever been involved in. We ended up focusing on housing and developing a roadmap for housing and dealing with housing crises in rural Mississippi. And it is kind of trickled into a bunch of the other projects that I work on now, and has shaped some of my focus on social development and some of the social determinants of health related issues in the state of Mississippi and rurality as a whole. But being shepherded in by someone like her who really cared and demonstrated passion and care for people shaped the way that I do everything moving forward, because that is the center of it for me. That's not an afterthought in any way. It's like human centric. It's my duty is to the people participating in the programs, not necessarily the rest of the mess at the higher level. It's really to be a good steward of their stories and carry that forward and respect their journeys. So that has shaped the way I live and breathe evaluation since then. That's all. Liska, did you want to speak to that one?
Yes, I wanted to share, look, like the key milestone for me, even now, when you ask me what I have achieved in my evaluation field, I would share that joining at the beginning of the project, when it was starting at its initiation, so when we just had funds and nothing else, some paper agreements between donors and the ministry or the government, when the rest was just blank. So joining at that time can be challenging, and this really has pushed me to learn a lot, work hard, and challenge myself to dig deeper. And as well, I think this has shaped me to become like the best monitoring and best monitoring specialist I could ever be. And as well, because I had whatever data it required, and I know that you cannot have an evaluation without data. And then we collect all the data through the monitoring. I feel like this is something that I feel proud of in my career. And looking back, I think this has also pushed me to follow the evaluation path when I decided to join the impact evaluation team of the World Bank back then. It is the appetite that was growing from really that project, the challenges, because I knew like everything. And when you are monitoring an evaluation specialist, you are the center of everything. So you feel like you know all the pieces of information that is required, but you want to go deeper, you want to work with different economists, you get that appetite, you get ideas, and you feel like, okay, let us work on this problem, let us try to explore this, let us bring a new technique to explore, to find out, because it's like a research. So really being part of the monitoring and evaluation team was my best achievement, and delivering the project, having the evaluation done, and having all the tools that are required has been really an achievement so far in my career.
Thank you for sharing. I think this is like really helpful for understanding the different ways that people can get into evaluation. Our second question is, what skills are important for leadership roles in evaluation from your perspective? And what is a leadership role in evaluation? Did anyone want to start us off?
Yes,
You
I
can-
can start.
Okay, I was gonna say, Lydia, feel free to call us out at any time because we're gonna do the stare until we decide who's gonna talk.
Okay.
Yeah, so talking about the skills which are needed in leadership and evaluation, I would say, first of all, you need to have the analytical skills. You need to have the analytical skills to understand the problem and try figure out the ways of solving the problem. So to me, this is something that I'm seeing is critical. So analytical thinking, and also being able to strategize the thinking and communicate what you are having in mind. Because sometimes I have met, when I met the economists, researcher in my team first, they could have ideas, which will probably best ideas, but also knowing how to communicate them to other different team members is a skill. So having the communication skills is also important. And then as well, when you are having findings that you would like to share to the client or to anyone, being, in my case, the government or the donors, trying to convince them about the results that we are having, it requires some communication skills. So, and knowing the different level of people that you are talking to is also important. And also having an easy way to make sure that everyone is understanding whatever, even if it's a simple PowerPoint, so that it can be straightforward and easily captured by everyone. So, and as well, because I joined in a project, in my skills, I think when having the skills of a project, of managing projects, project management skills, it is also important, because I don't see, I mean, you can do some, I have seen some evaluation being done without having like an idea at the beginning that they will be conducting evaluation. So when you have some project management skills and then you're designing a project, you think in advance about all those things, about the monitoring and evaluation. If you're having some surveys that you'll be doing, you put together the funds in advance, and you think about the end line, what will happen after that. So how can we, especially in the case when you're looking for funds, when you're talking with different people, donors or other partners, to convince them that you've used their funds efficiently, you need to bring facts that is really convincing. So project management skills, you also be able to plan about, either you will be having some staffing, you'll be conducting some surveys, you'll be having some budget, you'll be going to the field, you monitor and document everything. You will conduct an evaluation to share the lessons learned, to ensure that your objectives, outcomes, goals have been achieved. So I find the project management skills really, really relevant. Also engaging with different people, because sometimes in my case, I like to use experience, my personal experience. When you are conducting evaluation, you find out sometimes that you need data, maybe secondary data, and those might be available within the area where you are or within the institutions or a country. When you don't engage with the people, you would go double the work or spend more money doing those kind of surveys, which are already done and data is already existing. So I find like engaging with different stakeholders also a key to know what is going on, what has been done. So what am I bringing as an added value in my evaluation? So I will also share that leadership and also teamwork. Being a good leader, understanding and giving space to everyone to the table so that everyone can share their ideas. I might be a junior person in the team, but I may have an idea which may drive to a better evaluation. So I find like teamwork is good, and leadership skills is important. So make everyone sit on the same table, have the word no. Conduct like routine checkups, make sure everyone knows what's going on within the team. So those are some of the skills that I find are also relevant, and at the same time, learning from each other. So you may find that in our case, we had different organizations or NGOs which were also conducting impact evaluations. So maybe they are using some techniques which are not available within us, but can be also done. So learning from each other, like also continuous learning. Like in the case of the pandemic, I remember we were doing some surveys, but in the middle of the pandemic where everyone was just stuck at home, we just adopted to some phone surveys. So this is something you just learn from others. They are doing this. Oh, what is the requirement? How can we duplicate this? And then is it adaptable in our area, in our field? So I find that continuous learning is also another thing. So it can be a various set of things, but I will stop here and let my colleagues also, my colleagues also, panelists come in.
What
Izzy?
I would add to that is that the thing I have learned just from being on the ground is this. There is an inverse relationship between the size of the organization you work for and the number of roles that you have to play in the work that you do. So when you work for a very small organization and you are leading an evaluation project or a team, you need to be able to do a million things. You need to be able to do the report design and graphics work to get the report out the door. You need to be able to do the analytic work, if that's qualitative or quantitative. You need to be able to do on the ground data collection. Sometimes you will have to go out into the world and spend 3 days surveying people. And what you do at work will change drastically from day to day. At the other end of the spectrum, when you are in a leadership role doing evaluation work for a very large organization, and especially in a university, the number of tasks that you do becomes much, much smaller. And in academia, for instance, notoriously, the higher up you move in academia, the less you get to do of the work you were actually trained to do. So I tell my team all the time, I probably do more budget math these days than I do stats math. And that can be really useful when you're deciding, like knowing about that inverse relationship can be useful when you're deciding what you actually want your day-to-day to look like as a person doing evaluation leadership. Are you really good at one or two niche areas and that's what you want to focus on? Okay, cool. You might need a bigger organization, a bigger team. Do you have a really big toolbox and you want to get to play all of the parts? You might want to be at a smaller organization where you are playing a bunch of instruments all at once. But in 17 years in the field, that has been consistently true. Everywhere I have worked, from 10-person organizations to thousands and thousands of person R1 research organizations.
Thank you, Izzy. I do work at the same center as Izzy, but it is important to acknowledge that she is not my supervisor. We did this intentionally so that I can speak to these things very honestly, and so could she without it being weird. But I think this is okay. I hold two roles. I'm not in a leadership role at my organization. I am in a leadership role here with EvalYouth North America and some of my extracurriculars. The reason I'm not in a leadership role at my center from my point of view is I'm still in my dreamer phase. You can be a dreamer and be a leader, but I need my leaders to rein me in sometimes. Like I'm the person that comes in and I'm like, I have 55 ideas about how we can do this. Help me shape it into something that would be budgetarily feasible and something that's not going to keep me up till 4 a.m. every night, because I would do that to myself at this point. And that's partially because I'm not at the point of writing budgets and I'm not doing the proposals and I'm not thinking of, I don't have 17 years of experience to know what's feasible and what's not. But what I am is eager. And that's a good thing for me to be on the team for now. Just because like I'm still very like fresh. I'm still very excited about all these things. But not to say that that goes away with time, but over time I will know how to prioritize a little bit better. Hopefully we're putting that on the list of goals for the next couple years. But I say this and I say this everywhere all the time. I think one of the most important roles of leadership is to be understanding and be compassionate and care for your team, because I think sometimes it can be a very demanding line of work, especially when you're in a small business setting at a university-based center like we are. It's very busy. We have 55 plus projects at any given time across a very small team. And without like leading with empathy as a leader, it could lead to burnout super quickly. So if I didn't have such a phenomenal team, Izzy being one of those, not my direct leader, a phenomenal leadership team that I can go to with literally anything, I wouldn't have stuck with the field. I also think, yeah, I think there's always ways to improve, but I do think I've gotten very lucky with leadership. I also wouldn't have progressed as quickly if I didn't have a leadership team that was dedicated to giving agency. Like I will walk in and be like, okay, I think I want to lead data collection on this new type of thing. I've never done this method before, whether it be photo, voice, or something different. They're like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's meet. Let's plan about how you're going to carry it out. Maybe you shadow someone one time, but then you go and do it, and then you have that skill. So I think leading by example, being empathetic, all of these different things are really important for leadership roles. And I still have a laundry list of things I want to develop before being in a leadership role in an organization that is cranking out all these evaluation projects. But I am more comfortable in that space, in cultivating development of other young and emerging evaluators and learning alongside my peers.
I wanted to share something also here. I just saw the comments about from Izzy, what reduces being real often. She said that let's be real, that is often something that reduces over time. So I wanted to share something here before we just move maybe to the next question. We were running a survey and we went to the field. And in our estimation from our piloting, we had estimated that the questionnaire would take like 1.5 hours, and then so anyone, it was like a household survey, and every enumerator would just go and then do 4 surveys per day, and then we'll be done. But when we reached to the field, I was leading the team. We found that because like moving from one household to another was like time consuming, which is something we did not encounter before when we were doing our estimation. So, and our team, our enumerators they really were focused, and they wanted to achieve their goals. And it happened that by the end of the day, they did not achieve their goals. But so being understanding, and for a facilitator, someone also mentioned, and also being real, because sometimes you do an estimate and when you come to the field, you may find that something is not applicable, is not doable. So you need to understand the people, because if you use the people and they are not happy by the end of the day, you're not understanding, you're not facilitating, you're not being real with them, or this is something which can also impact the quality of the data that you will be collecting. So going also to the field is with the people, going through the same struggle, ensuring that you are experiencing whatever they are going through as a leader is something I find important. So going down to the people you're leading, to their level, so that you can understand what they are going through is also important. I just wanted to highlight this thing.
Yeah, and I'd love to kind of expand on my comment a little bit too. Are folks familiar with the phrase new relationship energy? Right? This made the rounds on young people internet not that long ago. The idea being that sometimes when a relationship is new, it has like all of this excitement and vibrance or whatever. Sometimes you see that in applied social sciences work. It's like a new advocacy or a new researcher energy, different kind of NRE. And it's really important, and that eagerness and mission driven and purpose drivenness is something that I think is such a huge asset and really important, and something that I think needs to be cultivated, and that we want to like be very intentional about preventing people from burning out on. I have seen leadership models that will kind of just churn early career evaluators and researchers. You get a bunch of people who are new to the field in, they are super excited. They, want applied skills. They've got a lot of textbook skills. They've got a lot of, classroom seminar skills, but they haven't encountered the challenges of being out in the field. They go out in the field, their like energy and commitment powers them through it, even when, say, working conditions are less than ideal, or planning didn't, inadequate planning has happened, and we're just relying on the enthusiasm of our workforce instead of strategic planning by our leaders to carry the project through. And then those people burn out and we get a fresh batch. So while I think that, really cultivating and celebrating the kind of NRE of early career evaluators and researchers is really important, I also think like a leadership model that doesn't rely on that, but instead is focused on sustainability and knowing that, for the first couple of years, you may be super hype about this and you want to spend every Saturday doing data collection, and that's awesome. But 5 or 10 years in, you might want to spend your Saturdays with friends or family, or maybe you've got a dog. And I still want you to be able to come to work and feel as fulfilled and feel as mission driven and interested in the work, such that your data quality doesn't suffer, your work satisfaction doesn't suffer. And I think that that's a really important balance. So, I joke, but that's what I mean, is that you can wring all of the enthusiasm out of early career folks, and it's a bad leadership move.
Thank you for sharing all that. I think it's really important to not only understand the skills, but also what it takes like to be a leader for the betterment of the entire workforce and evaluation. And so our third question is, what pathways for leadership development and evaluation exist?
This is a tough question because we have some projects that look at like different types of leadership development just more broadly. And it's really inconsistent what even exists, because leadership can be so nuanced based on the context. There is broad stroke leadership development training in a lot of different capacities. There's like literature and theories on what leadership can and should look like. But again, there's much less like nuance when you get to the intersection with different fields. I think a lot of what I've seen modeled is learn as they go. There's like people who have been trained in leadership, people who have been trained in evaluation, and then they try to find their intersection between those two things on their own and practice. I have not been trained in anything formally. I'm still writing that eagerness for now. Izzy, don't kill it. But yeah, curious to hear what you all have seen along the way.
For me, I could probably divide the kinds of like training and development I've had into credentialing and actually useful skills. The overlap between things that got me a credential people care about and things that I can actually use in my day-to-day job is significant, but not giant. And in fact, I have found myself to be more in demand as, a member of a team when I have skills that are a little bit weird. So if you find something that's a niche interest and you can pursue learning about it on your own, be that through, a lot of the software that we use, for instance, you could have free tutorials, free trainings, free courses online, and then being equipped with all of those kind of weird or specific skills has been really useful. There are a lot of rooms where I would not have a seat at the table if I didn't show up with a PhD in hand. But there are also a lot of jobs that I couldn't do if I hadn't gone out and taken a training on like Amazon Web Services server infrastructure or geographic information systems like fine detail mapping. That's stuff that wasn't part of my grad program, but I just thought it was really neat. And so I would say it's a combination of the two. The credentialing is still important, and that's just a function of systemic inequality and the structures that are set up to replicate themselves. But I think if there is anything, like any skill, any tool that's related to the social sciences that you can get really hype about, becoming an expert in that will serve you well almost no matter what it is. One of the folks in my doctoral cohort, her master's degree was in creative writing. She had an MFA in creative writing. She didn't have a research or an evaluation background prior to that. And she brought that in through an autoethnographic approach and was teaching folks about journaling in the field, developing autoethnographies, writing as a means of capturing lived experience. And so I think that there are a bunch of pathways for leadership, some of them structured by existing structural inequalities and capitalist gatekeeping, and some of them structured by here's a neat trick that I know, let me show you how it's relevant.
Liza, do you have anything to add for this question?
Yeah, like for the pathways to leadership, what I can add is like having a degree something. So, and when you are looking for which area to go, just make sure that you do something at least you love, so that you go for something that you will enjoy doing, because this is important. Of course, if we are talking about evaluation, and then this comes, you will find some, there are some courses like in social science, which gives a room to learn about how evaluation is done. So I find networking with different people, telling them, especially people who are like, look like role models to you, who are in the same career that you would like to go to, is important, because you share what you want to do, or they share their experience, and you feel like, oh, that person has gone through this, and you find that you are finding courage through the way. So I find networking is also important, and learning through the way. If there is a new technique, a software coming in, just go for it, because it's doable. And I believe that in the motto saying, if someone has done it, I can also do it. If this person has done it, I can do it. If this person has been able to do it, I can also go for it, and then can learn and do it. So I find also the continuous learning important, and also you can adapt. Maybe if I'm in the road sector, you can adapt the same thing in your area, being health or another area. And also where necessary, you can do some professional courses. They are there in monitoring and evaluation. There are some universities which offer some professional courses online. Some others are doing in person. So I find that to qualify to the market, sometimes you need the degree or the paper, and this is something that you can find and also get. Yeah, also getting a mentor, someone you can go to and talk about your career, and also help figure the way out, is something which has been helpful to me. Having someone who is a senior that I can run to every time I feel like, oops, this is becoming unclear, and I would like to know how to do the next thing, has been important. So that's all I can share.
I have one more thought here. I know I said I wasn't leadership. I'm not, but I do oversee our undergrads. And I think one thing that's really important, I think undergrads and graduate students in some cases are often treated as like doing supplementary work or doing task-based work, but sitting down with your students that are potentially in the pipeline of becoming young and emerging evaluators and later senior evaluators, and drawing the lines so that they can see like where the work that they're doing overlaps with their interests and how that the task-based work that they're doing contributes to the overall process, and helping them to see the ecosystem and not just task-based work can have really positive implications on building the pipeline of interested people in evaluation. And I think that's something that's very commonly overlooked. I think that's true of a lot of undergraduate student workers and graduate assistants in general, that it's normally kind of normalized as a task-based role, but helping to see that through line, especially because we don't have an academic program in evaluation, can positively contribute to cultivating some of that interest. But anyways, I will move on now.
Thank you. Our next question is what type of mentorship should a young and emerging evaluator pursue to build leadership skills? Izzy, do you want to start first?
Sure. My major professor used to always tell me that you need approximately 5 mentors to flesh out an entire career. So, for instance, I was a first generation college student. I came from a lower middle income family, and I had, academic mentors that were helping me figure out how to navigate grad school, how to navigate college. I also had a mentor who, like our whole relationship was her telling me how to act at academic networking events and cocktail parties. And all of those different dimensions are really useful and have been really helpful, and I've been really grateful for it. I think the two things that I would note are that when I'm acting in a mentorship capacity or when I'm acting in a leadership capacity, I try to bring to that what the best of what I have seen from people who have been my own mentors and leaders. And I also try to learn from the experiences where I've had gravely insufficient leadership. Both ends of that spectrum have taught me a lot about what I want to do and see and what I want to avoid when I'm, like training up folks or leading a team. And so I think that there's a lot of value in both kinds of experiences, and you might consider taking some time to reflect on who your best leaders and who your worst leaders have been in your own experiences up to this point. And that can be in evaluation. It can also be like in a fast food job you had when you were 15, or like at summer camp. Like, leadership takes a lot of different forms, and a lot of those lessons are transferable. And the second thing I would note is that if you are a person who lives at the intersection of some marginalized identities, you might consider finding mentors that are in your field or in adjacent fields that have similar positionality, because a lot of times you're going to be looking at a system that's structured by inequalities that are pretty particular to positionality, social location. And it's nice to have someone who has been there and been kind of a trailblazer in those specific areas. Like straight white men might be fantastic leaders in particular settings, but they're not going to be able to help me a whole lot when I need advice about how to collect data about sex ed, even though I show up into a really heterocentric space as a very gay person, right? And so bearing in mind both leadership and leadership in the context of having to navigate marginalization is something that can be really helpful, and also just really morale boosting. It's nice to have some folks that have been there and can guide you through it. So those are two things that I would say are worth considering when you're thinking about mentorship.
Thank you. Lyska, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think I had the same ideas as Izzy did. So I also come from a family where I was the first one to graduate with a master's degree. So most of the things, like my mom, there are some things like I'll be facing in my professional career that she would not understand, or she will not be the best to advise, even though my moms are always the best advisors, right? But sometimes I will feel, oh my God, how am I going even to explain this? Because so I just felt at some point that, oh my God, it's really important to find someone who has been there in the career to go to, and someone you feel free to talk to about. So of course, this cannot be only one person. She also mentioned that. I also find myself always having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know this person. With this one, I go in this area. With that one, I go in another area, in another. So there is that person I will go to, I feel free to talk about each and everything, even the disorganized ideas that I'm having. And then there is another person I go to where I have like a area, maybe technical area, that's I would like to get his insights. There is another one I go to feel like the energy, the power of the field that I want to pursue. So those are the different combination of people, and I think one complements the other. And talking about leadership skills or how to find a mentor, sometimes you find a mentor where you are. You don't need to go far. I remember, so the first person who really impressed me was my boss, the one who hired me, because the way she was working she was like doing the top. I rated her top at everything. So her leadership skills were very good, well rated according to me. But when I look back at her career, it's because she's been a field coordinator as I was, and now she has grown into an economist. So she's been there, she knows. So even the communications and the challenges that I'll be facing, she will easily understand them. So this was the person I first picked. So knowing knowing where you want to go, and then looking at someone who has been there and who facilitates you. Because really at some point I have run to people asked to become my mentors, and I will feel like, there is something wrong. It's not going well. When you feel like there is something not going well, then this is not the right person. Just go back. Because I believe like everyone, we are here because there was someone who offered us a hand and pushed us. And if you feel like someone is not really willing to help, I don't recommend to push. No. Because the world is full of beautiful people, and I believe you'll find one of yours and who will be the right person to go to, talk to, understand you, and lead you to the best career where you want to be. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm of the mindset that everyone can be a mentor. I'm in that weird transitionary state where I'm like, I've been the mentee this whole time, and now people are like, oh, do you want to be a mentor? I'm like, I don't know, am I ready? But I need to practice what I preach. And I think, I don't know, my first formal mentor was through the EvalYouth global mentorship program, and I got paired with Fabiola Baracal in Peru, and that was life-changing because she worked in a sector I wasn't in. I didn't know what I was doing. She sat and talked to me once a week and was like, wow, this girl has no idea what she's doing, but I'm gonna hang in there, I'm gonna keep showing up. And she really opened my mind to like, I don't even have to be in the same sector. I don't have to have any idea what you're talking about. We're talking about similar concepts. Like I don't know any of the practical conceptual stuff, but we're still in community together, and we still text, and I get updates of her dogs, and we just like build that rapport from then forward. My fellow board members for EvalYouth North America, that I text you guys constantly because y'all are my mentors. Y'all are teaching me what to do. We're all in community, all my coworkers. Yep. Every single one of them, probably 17 of us that hear from me daily, because I just believe there's so much value in those communities. My students, my undergraduate students, are also my mentors because they're teaching me how to explain things in more plain language. They're teaching me how to transfer it to an accounting student's vernacular and how we might appeal to them. I just don't think the limit exists. You don't want to be like in conversation with 25 mentors every day, but as long as you can sustain those relationships, I don't think there's a limit in how many mentors you have, and the skills will be different in all of them. Some of them are just going to be your soft interpersonal skills and like having a relationship with that person and being able to go to them for guidance. But sometimes you've got Izzy on your team who's able to teach you how to do, why am I forgetting, social network analysis very rapidly for a project, and can explain it in terms that a 5-year-old could understand. And I needed that. So I don't think there's really one type of mentorship that will fit the bill. I think the skills required and self-suggested of evaluators are so broad that there's no one thing that is more valuable than the others.
The one additional piece that I would chip in on this is that if you are operating in a total institution like academia, it is likely to serve you well if you are able to find someone who thought they wanted to do the thing you think you want to do, tenure track, research faculty, whatever, and then change their mind. Even if that is just to sit down and like chat with them one time. Sometimes, you know, total institutions are designed for their own perpetuation. People who are tenure track faculty are designed to create the next generation of tenure track faculty. Sometimes it's easy to get into that echo chamber and not have an array of perspectives about all of the options that are open to you. So one of the kind of like, you know, secret champ of mentoring can sometimes be the person who thought that they were headed the same direction as you and then saw something that maybe you haven't seen, maybe won't even apply to you, and changed course. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those different ways that mentorship relationships can look like. Our next question is, what do people get wrong about leadership positions in evaluation, and what do they get right?
Izzy, do you have to hop off at the hour?
I do have a hard stop at 1, and I'm sorry about that.
You want to take a stab at this and then wave your goodbye?
This one's difficult for me to nail down because I don't think until I had a leadership position in evaluation, I don't think I ever heard anybody talk about leadership in evaluation. Like I didn't have a sense of the broad zeitgeist about it at all. I have no idea what people get wrong about leadership positions and evaluations. I can tell you a lot about what people get wrong about budgeting and FTE equivalents. So I guess I can answer by saying the thing that surprised me the most. And the thing that surprised me the most was how quickly leadership positions can transfer you from doing the work to managing the work. And that is a completely different skill set and not one that you learn along the way. And I feel pretty confident speaking for all of us that are at the PEA level in our center, that has been a learn by doing experience. And that was the biggest surprise for me. But I have really appreciated being part of the discussion. So thank you all for having me. And I'm happy if I can ever be useful, please feel free to email me. Olivia has my contact information. I'm happy to chat or answer questions anytime. And now I'm going to go hop off and fight the good fight with budgets.
Thank you
Have
so
fun.
much, Izzy. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, if anybody needs to hop off, please feel free. I know we had budgeted an hour and a half, but I don't know how public we had made that. And I think Amy's gonna hop on at 1, so I'm gonna hang on and just keep chatting if anybody wants to stick around, but again, no pressure. Carlos, you got a question? You wanna come off mute?
No, I was just wondering about that 90, from my point of view, 95% of the participant here is female. You are woman,
Sure.
no?
I'll have to do some stats. I'll have to count the registration stats. I'm not sure. We didn't ask gender on the registration form, but that's a good question. And you're analytically thinking about the participants.
Yeah, maybe something I can share on this question number 5 about what the leadership positions in evaluation get wrong is communication. Sometimes they got nice and brilliant ideas, which they got right. And sometimes they don't know how to communicate them properly. Because, yeah, I have shared that previously. It's been really challenging to me when I first joined my job. Working with economists, they come with an idea of like, what are they even talking about? It's not even possible on this field. Sometimes maybe you are working on the field and people they are sitting in the HQ somewhere and they just bring something maybe which has been done in another area and they tell, no, we want to do this, we want to do that. I'm like, oh my goodness. So you will feel like, wow. So, and sometimes you find yourself struggling to go and bring them to the right point. So this is something I think the people in evaluation sometimes get wrong. Having a brilliant idea, good. and then how to communicate it, and then how to adapt it to the field area that you are working on is also something.
I have trouble with this because I'm nestled within academia. So there's a culture of necessitating expertise that is often justified by letters behind your name. And I don't think that I've experienced this internally at my center, but the concept of having to demonstrate expertise through those pathways of having an advanced degree, which I do not carry whatsoever, I think that's a dangerous trap. And I think it's a good way to demonstrate expertise based in the current system. But I think that's difficult for young and emerging evaluators that aren't that far in their careers yet and haven't advanced that far academically, when there is a leadership culture that conflates expertise or any valid understanding of a situation with those advanced degrees. That's something that every time I meet a new client, they're like, "What's your PhD in?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, not me." But that's been something that is very present on the front of my mind almost daily. I also think there's a line between micromanagement and like just a normal amount of management. And I think that's a cautious line to tread, especially when there's so much going on in different evaluations. But I think that just takes time to parse out what the right balance is and trusting your team and getting to know them. I think that's something that is still, I don't know that anybody's cracked the code of management, but let me know if you have.
Thank you, Olivia. Move on to the next question, which is, what advice would you share for people interested in leadership positions?
I would immediately say, don't forget being a young and emerging evaluator, because I think people get so distant from what they felt and what they wanted to see. And people do lose some of that excitement for the field over time and stop asking those hard questions about why aren't our young and emerging evaluators stepping into leadership roles and things like that. Once you get to that senior role, it's not top of mind anymore. So just hold on to the momentum that you felt as a young and emerging evaluator and continue to advocate for others coming into those spaces, because I think that do not let that die. That is my one statement to carry into this.
Lyska, was there anything you wanted to add for this question? No? Okay. Our next question is, what can senior evaluators in leadership roles do to better support the development of young and emerging evaluators?
I'd like to hear from anyone in the audience as well if you have thoughts on this one. I have my thoughts, but I'll hold them. I think it's an ecosystem. It's not any one leader. It's not any one org. I think there's a system around this and incorporating young and emerging evaluators. But I'd be curious what other people think. Lydia, you take a crack at it.
To think about this.
What would make you feel supported as a young and emerging evaluator by leadership?
I think it kind of plays a role. You guys have already mentioned this, like mentorship. I think like even if you know, from the academic sense, got an undergrad, went to undergrad or graduate school, they're still missing, I think, pieces like skills that you might not get in the academic space, that you might get instead in the evaluation field. So I think senior evaluators bridging that gap and supporting, you know, development of skills or mentoring as best as they can for young and emerging evaluators, like that's how I would feel better supported.
Share
But
it.
to hear what others say.
Yeah, Sherry, it looked like you had your hand up. Was that real?
It was real. Hi, everyone. So I read an article, and it was on, mentorship and how someone had coined the term reverse mentorship because it's what the senior evaluator would get from the, it wasn't the context of evaluation, it was mentorship on a whole, but what the reverse mentorship was said to be what the senior professional would get in turn from, you know, mentoring the younger professional or the emerging professional. And then the argument was actually to reject that and say mentorship is mentorship. There is no reverse mentorship, because there's some, you know, like the difference of experience. I think what mentorship is the exchange of you know, knowledge sharing. And if so, in the context of this question, you know, when we're in the emerging space, we are hungry for knowledge and seeking out these things. And, you know, somebody that's setting their career and you know, have their blueprint for how they approach, you know, certain, you know, evaluant, there is some insight that we can provide. So I think this is a rebellious comment to say as well that, you know, I probably turned the question on its head, but just a mutual relationship, right? Knowledge sharing going both ways versus being unidirectional. So thank you.
Thank you, Cher. And yeah, it's much easier to approach your leadership when you feel like you have more of that horizontal power sharing, whether that's just like the way you feel or what's actual in practice. Like until you have that rapport built and you're able to go to that person in that comfortable mentorship space, it can be really intimidating to even ask questions. So I echo that horizontalness of mentorship that you were just mentioning. Anyone else have any thoughts from the audience? I see Malia's with us. Malia also works with me.
I just wanted to share something here, if I may come in. So I find that as a leader, having a capacity building budget set is important because it helps for the staff or young evaluators to take some courses which are needed to gain new skills that they will be using in their daily work. And also a good working environment, ensuring everybody is doing good and is happy. Otherwise, they are not going to be productive or they are not going to sustain having better contracts. Yeah, having better contracts and making sure everyone is, yeah, you doing like one-on-ones as often as you can with anyone to know what's going on, what's going wrong, and how can I even improve to help you grow in your career? Because sometimes what the leader is thinking of being the best for the staff is not what the staff maybe is looking for. So yeah, and yeah, this is what I would like to share.
Absolutely. Also, like we talked about earlier, like just providing support, like leadership, just supporting young and emerging evaluators, but that support could also be compensation and like monetarily valuing your young and emerging evaluators and not just like performatively being excited about it. It doesn't just have to be like emotion, it can be through demonstration of value. And this is the workplace for your young and emerging evaluators. So it has to be backed with action as well.
Yeah, you're right. And also engaging someone, because this is also can be something, some good, engaging someone, learning by doing. This is what I believe in. So if you don't get someone, they are not going to get there. If you only use one person who is on the senior person, how will the younger ones get the skills which are needed? So engaging the younger ones is also a good way for them to learn the new skills. And then you also see the potential in them by evaluating the job that they are doing and appreciating the work of someone. Just giving feedback. If something is done well, just appreciate, because this can push someone even go further their borders and as well. if it's something wrong as well, just share the feedback so that the person know where to improve as a leader. Thank you.
Share what you got.
I also think there is an onus on the institution and places commissioning evaluations as well. I mean, it's a bit of an insider club. And you know, I saw it was last year, and stemming from this Youth in Eval Week, but there were a few calls going out from some multinational development institutions to actually have a junior evaluator on the team. And I think once we start to dismantle, though, I don't want to be too rebellious to start to dismantle these in our circles. But you know, a lot of evaluators that are bidding for projects, you know, the bids aren't easy to the responses aren't easy to prepare. And then, you know, how the administrative process after this kind of seems like they always knew the evaluator they wanted to choose. They just wanted to open up the bidding process. So I think the agencies commissioning evaluations also have some onus in directing how they'd want the teams to look, right? You know, that section like who's on your team, you know, have a rubric. Is one person, you know, an emerging evaluator is one person. Does one person have expertise in agriculture or whatever, so on and so forth, based on the needs of the project.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I see Amy's with us now. Amy, did you want to come on camera and say hi?
Yes, hello, and my apologies for being late. I'll say flexibility is very important in evaluation work, so sorry for joining late.
No worries. Do you want to just tell us who you are really quick, and if there are any other questions you wanted to speak to before we wrap up?
Yeah. So I'm Amy Bellflower Thomas. I currently work as the Director for Research and Evaluation at the Public Health Accreditation Board with Lydia, where I oversee a team of 5 staff who do a variety of research and evaluation work, both internally to FAB, but also with the new CDC Public Health Infrastructure Grant. It's a pretty large grant going on now to improve our governmental public health workforce and foundational capabilities. And I'm also an adjunct professor at UNC Gillings, where I used to work, where I teach service learning courses around the social determinants of health. So really glad to be here. Yeah, I'll touch on a couple of things, and hopefully I won't contradict anything that's already been said, but just seeing this question here, you know, I think not a lot of people go to, you know, a program, a school program, and think, I'm going to be an evaluator. I very rarely see students, for instance, come into UNC and say, you know, they want to go into maternal and child health, or they want to go into nutrition or this or that. And very few come in and say, I want to evaluate. So whether that's just not understanding how cool it can really be, or understanding that that's like a path, I think a lot of people kind of fall into evaluation. They get the skills, take courses over time, and develop the skills kind of on the job. So in thinking about this question specifically about senior evaluators and leadership roles, I love that idea about having junior evaluators on projects. I also think in a similar vein, it's really, really important for senior evaluators to serve as mentors for younger evaluators who are interested, and not just mentoring younger evaluators, but younger students just interested in general in things like public health, and kind of showing them what evaluation is outside of kind of the traditional textbook. I think what I've gotten the most from doing evaluation more on the job is that a lot of the work, practice-based work, you know, doesn't fit into all the time the strict models and methods that we sometimes learn in courses. And so junior evaluators being able to really work on a project in real time, I think is so much more important than learning it in a classroom. So I think that's really important. So what I would say to senior evaluators is be open to junior evaluators. And then for young evaluators who are interested in getting experience, you know, reach out, take advantage of opportunities to get on projects and gain that experience, because the experience is really what teaches you the work. I think is really important. And I tell students that I mentor all the time, I think sometimes they're a little apprehensive about reaching out and asking to be on things, but I can say myself, working with students as a professor and working in the practice world at FAB, I have a really difficult time saying no to a student who comes to me, or a young evaluator or a young person in public health who's like, I want to gain some experience and I'm really passionate about this, and what can I do to help you? When I hear that passion and that interest, it's really, really hard for me to say, no, I'm not going to help you. So I'd say lots of the times the default from somebody, a senior evaluator, is going to be, yeah, I'm going to bring you along. I'm going to do something. I'm going to connect you. I'm going to do something. So don't be afraid to make that ask. I think you will rarely get a no. So that's some of the things that I would suggest.
Thank you so much. Lydia, do you want to close us out?
Yes, I can close this out. So thank you for all the panelists for coming and sharing your knowledge and for your time. It's very much appreciated. And thank you for the attendees for joining our session and for your time as well. We do ask that if you can follow us on LinkedIn, that would be great. We post there all the time, and you can stay updated on what EvalYouth North America is up to, and there's a QR code as well. So that's all that we have for today. And again, thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.